My 1-year-old grandson and my 85-year-old demented patient cannot envision the future. They don't have that skill. So guess what? They can't worry. How freaking awesome is that?
Welcome to the Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast, the podcast for high achievers who want to stay sharp, focused, and full of energy despite their diagnosis. With your host, National Board Certified Functional Medicine Health Coach, Julie Michelson, where Julie helps you take your power back from autoimmunity. And now here's your host, Julie Michelson.
Welcome back to the Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast. I'm your host, Julie Michelson, and today we're joined by Dr. Gary Sprouse, a retired primary care physician who practiced in Maryland for 38 years. He graduated from George Washington University Medical School in the top 10% of his class, and he is a member of Mensa. Dr. Sprouse is extremely passionate about bringing happiness into people's lives through humor, compassion, and understanding. He's committed to helping people improve their mental health. He's taken everything he's learned about stress reduction and crafted his book, Highway to Your Happy Place, A Roadmap to Less Stress, and reading just one chapter can change your life. In today's conversation, Dr. Sprouse shares tips and strategies from his work and his book on how we can all create our happy place, and we discuss the skills that we can exercise to manage our stress in a way that supports health and happiness. Gary, welcome to the podcast.
Julie, thank you so much for having me on. I am super excited to be here.
I am as well, and I'm excited about what I am presuming is your mission, just from the work that you've been doing and your book. And it is, I think, such an essential part of healing. And so tell us a little bit about your shift of how do you go from primary care to this author who's inspiring people to find their happy place.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So as a primary care doctor, I did that for 40 years. And as a primary care doctor, patients would come in all the time with these medical conditions, high blood pressure, diabetes, all these anxiety disorders. And they would say things to me like, Dr. Sprouse, I'm worried that I worry too much. And I'm like, well, then you probably are worrying too much, right? Yeah. And so I was like, in traditional medicine, there's medicines that we use, but they have their own side effects. And, there's some addiction issues and there's side effects, sleepy issues and lack of concentration, things like that. And I'm like, there's got to be something else going on here. So I started reading some books on stress. And most of the books on stress are set up to say, hey, here's the top 100 stresses. Like you lose your spouse, you lose your job, you get an illness or something like that. And you're like, well, that's great. But, I know people when they get divorced, they're really happy about it. Like, or their spouse dies. Thank God they finally, right. It's like, I'm like, so what is it that makes it so stressful?
Right.
And it was interesting because two things that came out of this. First off, here's what I would say to my patients. So if you weren't so stressed out, where would you be? And they're like, I don't know. Never really got that far. I only thought about being less stressed. And I was like, oh, well, so we need a destination because if you don't know where you're trying to get to, how the heck are you going to get there, right? So that's when I started talking about happy place. And then the second thing was, as a doctor, I'm used to writing a prescription that says, hey, here's a medicine for your blood pressure. It works great. It might have a side effect, might make you a little sleepy, might make you a little dizzy or something like that, but we'll work on that, right? So, and I turned that on to humanity, right? So humans have these amazing skills. As an example, we have the ability to envision the future. Yes. Amazing, right? Yes. Like we can go, hey, next week we're going to do this, or next year, or 10 years, or a billion years from now, this is what's going to happen, right? But, and here's the key, is it has side effects. So our skills have side effects. And you're like, wait, what does that mean? So if you can envision the future, then that means you can worry about it too. Mm-hmm. So my 1-year-old grandson and my 85-year-old demented patient cannot envision the future. They don't have that skill. One never hasn't gotten it yet, and the other had it but lost it. So guess what? They can't worry. Right. How freaking awesome is that? They don't have the ability to worry because they don't have the skill with the side effect. But they're also not very functional either because we have to take care of them because they can't envision the future.
Right.
So then we can do is say, well, okay, well, let's just get rid of the skill. So what I hear a lot is, we'll just live for today. And you're like, well, okay, that's a nice thought. But first off, it's impossible as a human because we spend way too much time in the future.
Right.
And second off, like, why would I want to give up my greatest skill? Because it has a side effect. So what I got into my book was like, how do we get rid of the side effect and keep the skill?
I love that. And that's the first step to creating anything, wellness, whatever, fill in the blank is envisioning it. So I love that this idea of you can't just make a change and avoid, right? So you can't say,
Yeah,
okay,
no,
I'm not going to wear, like, it's the same whether we're talking about, making a diet change or any other habit change, is like, you need to have that filler, like, where are we going? And
yes, for sure. Yeah.
yeah, I bet they didn't teach you in medical school to ask your patients,
Yeah, I took Happy
like,
Place 101. Yeah, there you go.
yeah, that should be the other. Now I know they're pushing for
Yeah,
finally
yeah.
more nutrition training. I think, also what I love, what I was like excited about as you were talking about this approach is all of those thoughts have a physical impact on the body and mental and emotional and all the things, right? So
Absolutely.
so just as, we feel if it's anxiety or whatever the stress related feelings are, but when we can start to create that happy place, and we're going to talk about how you help people do that, um, all of those thoughts are having impact on all of our cells, and then actual healing can happen.
Well, so here's what I say. Like, there's a book called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. It's a great book, right? It's 300 pages of all the bad things that happen to you because of stress. And there's a lot of physiological things. And what I talk about is our bodies were designed to have a fear reaction, but it was only supposed to last like 5 or 10 minutes and then
Right.
go away. Or
Yeah.
we were supposed to get angry, but in 5 or 10 minutes, it's supposed to go away. But we have people that are living their whole life in one giant anxiety response.
Yeah.
So what I say to people is like, look, your car can go 120 miles an hour, but not forever. Like
Right.
it starts breaking down. And that's what I see. That's what I see. And it's one of the reasons I started writing this book was to say, look, we got to help people in a different way. Like medicines are great. And what I like about what I'm doing is as a physician, I have all the knowledge of what the medicines are and the physical diagnoses and all that kind of stuff. But now I've added this whole other part where it goes, hey, here's the psychological things. And this is what I talked about. So there's something that makes losing your spouse so stressful. What is that? And what I realized was, I was on somebody else's podcast, and what they said to me is, your book tells us the ingredients of what makes it stressful.
Mhm.
So the reason losing your spouse is so stressful is because they're worried, or they feel guilty, or they're regretting, or they're low self-esteem, or they're overwhelmed, or all the, and I can't fix that you've lost your spouse,
Right.
but I can fix that you worry too much, or you feel guilty, or you regret. Those are things I can do something about. And those are universal. So every man, woman, and child who has a mind has those skills, which then means they have those side effects.
Which is amazing, because you're giving people the tools.
Yes.
I mean, it's not new information, that it's our response to a stressor, not the actual stressor, and that's where we get stuck. So I know that you go through a lot in the book. Um, let's just kind of run us through this idea of building the happy place, back to, I can like literally see that kind of blank look in your patients' faces when you ask, because
Yes.
when I ask clients, what brings you joy? And it just breaks my heart that these are, adults that just go blank. Like,
Mhm.
oh my God, I don't know, I haven't thought about that in
Yes.
20, 30
Exactly right.
years. So let's talk a little bit about this, how we build. You say that the architecture is the same for all of us,
I
right?
do, right?
So
Yeah.
yeah, let's walk us through that.
That's a good word.
And I
I like
don't
the
think I
words that you're
even
using. I like the architecture. That's a good word, right? So here's what I found. Like everybody, so first off, I had, like, when I was writing my book initially, it was all about stresses and how to get less stress and how to reduce some of the side effects. But then I started going, wait, I got to figure out where we're trying to get to, right? So that's when I started identifying a happy place. And I'm like, but everybody's happy place is different. But as I started doing some research and doing some thinking, I was like, wait, everybody's happy place has the same rooms. So, like, I was just in Germany on a vacation and I went to this big giant castle, right? Beautiful castle. And I'm like, so the castle still had a kitchen, still
Right.
had a dining room, still had a living room, had a bedroom. It didn't have an indoor bathroom, I'll give them that, right? But
That's
they all had the
old.
same rooms, right? So they have the same rooms as we have. So what
Right.
I realized was everybody's happy place has the same rooms,
Mhm.
but they decorate them differently. So some people have a big kitchen, some people have a small kitchen, some people paint it blue, some people have artwork. So everybody's happy place has their own variation, but the rooms are the same. So then what's the rooms, right? So then you got to know what the rooms are, because when you know what the rooms are, then you go, oh, you know what? I can do that. Yeah, that's not too bad.
I love
So when
that.
I go through the rooms, here's the rooms. So the first room I talk about is contentment. And contentment is like, how you feel in general. Like, what's the sum of your good and bad that's gone on in your life. And what I found with that is mindset makes a huge difference. So one of the books that I got involved with is called Mindset Matters. It's of Jack Canfield, and I was a co-author with it. Became a number one bestseller. Yay.
Yay.
But in that book, what we talk about is mindset, and each author gives their own deal of how mindset changed their situation. Mindset is just something I can change today. Like, it's how
Yeah.
I think about it, right? So I've met plenty of rich people who are miserable and plenty of poor people who are really happy with their life and really contented. So, here's a study that I brought up. They took people that had won the lottery, won $1 million,
Oh,
and then they took people who had become paraplegic from a car accident, and they looked at them in 1 year. And guess who was happier?
yeah, it's wild. I'm
Nobody. They were the
imagining the
same.
the
So you couldn't
paraplegic.
tell who was happier out of
Yeah.
1 year from somebody who won $1 million and somebody who became a paraplegic. Like, wait,
Yeah.
what? Mindset, man, that makes a huge difference, right?
Yeah.
The second thing is then pleasures. And we all need pleasures. And so we talk about big pleasures, like my niece is graduating from high school and going to college. And, my friend just had a grandkid, right? And it's like we have these big things that go on. But I was just reading this book, and what he talked about is a guy named Sterling. He goes, what we were meant for was having all these little pleasures
Yeah.
every day, all the
Right.
time. And he said it came down to, like, something tastes better than you thought. Well, that should give you pleasure. Or you
Right.
found something to eat, or you found something to drink, or you were safe and you didn't get hurt today. And it's like, I play basketball on Thursday nights, and like, my goal is to have fun and not get hurt, right?
Right.
So when I
Yeah.
get done, yeah, I didn't get hurt tonight. Yeah, right. Let's get. So we're supposed to have these 1,000 little pleasures every day, but we're so busy and we're so miserable that we, like, totally ignore all that,
Miss
right?
them. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So that brings me to the third one, which is gratitude. Gratitude is how you find all those little pleasures, because what I see is that we take way too much for granted, even when we're trying to be grateful. It's hard. So again, I was in Germany, right? So I'm in this castle. I'm like, wow, this is a really nice castle, right? But I'm like, wait, this castle doesn't have air conditioning. It doesn't have a phone.
A
It doesn't
bathroom.
have a stove. It doesn't have windows. Like, wait, what? And it's like, my little house has way more stuff than the King of Germany had 500 years ago, right?
Right.
So I had this thing I call a 50-point wake up. And I wake up in the morning like, 10 points, I'm alive. 10 points, I got food. 10 points, I got water. 10 points, I'm safe. 10 points, my wife's safe too. Yay, right? 50 points just by going opening my eyes in the morning. Yay,
Yeah.
right? And
Another
it puts you
day.
in that mood of being grateful for what you have. Because patients will come in and say, Doc, I'm falling apart. I'm like, really? I said, do your eyelids close? And they're like, well, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I have patients that they don't. So don't take that for granted.
Right.
Thank God that your eyelids closed, right? Yay, right? So then the next one is I call anticipation of pleasure. And this is where our ability to envision a future comes in. So we can look into the future and go, oh, that's going to be nice. So I'm getting ready to go on another vacation soon. And I'm like, oh, and in my mind,
Yep.
I get all the same pleasurable sensations as if I'm on the vacation. And it goes on for months and months. And in my mind, the vacation's perfect. Like, the car doesn't go flat, the reservations all work, right? The
Yeah.
place is all amazing when I go there, right? So these are all cool things that go into the next room is what I call fulfillment. And fulfillment is made up of three things. One is learning, because turns out learning, curiosity are very pleasurable activities for most people. Two is giving. And so we're a communal organism. So when we're giving to other people, we really like that, right? It makes us feel good. And the last one is purpose. And what this is one of the things that I've seen with people is that we finding, like, for cavemen, finding food and water and being safe, that was enough to fulfill you. But nowadays, that's so easy. It doesn't count.
We don't
So we have
think
to
about
find
it.
other things to fulfill us. So you've become, a functional counselor. And it's like, that fulfills you. I can see that, right?
Right.
And so not everybody has that luxury. So some people have to find what it is that fulfills them. And that it's
And
not always
sometimes it
so.
changes
Yes.
too.
And it changes. That's exactly right. So my purpose used to be, hey, get up in the morning and take care of patients. Now it's, hey, get up and try to get people into their happy place, right?
Yeah.
And then the last room is one I call CASH, and it's an acronym, and it stands for a couple of things. So it stands for being connected and feeling in control, being accepted and feeling like you're appreciated, feeling safe, which is a really big deal, and then having some spiritual feeling. And then the last one is having hope. And it's like, what I see is, when people get into a place where they think my life's miserable, which is a lot of people, right?
Hmm.
But when they add, and it's never going to get better, that's when they get in trouble.
Yeah. Well, they're putting a stake in the ground, and if you think I liken it to, again, back to the power of our thoughts, right? When I was
Absolutely.
diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, I was told, you will decline. We'll keep you as comfortable as we can for as long as possible, and we'll try to slow that decline. Well, shocker that I spent the next 11 years declining,
Yeah.
right? Because that was my expectation. Wasn't even in the realm of possibility
Yeah.
in my mind that I could do anything but decline.
Yeah.
And now here I am, however many, 20 years
You look
later,
pretty good for declining, right?
doing doing way more than I was doing 20 years ago. Pain free. Like it's, and I say to people all the time, like, I am not I mean, we're all special in our own way, but we are designed for healing. We are designed for joy, connection, pleasure, all the things on your list. I
Yeah.
think
So
that.
that book I read by Sterling, one of the things he talks about, he said, we talk about homeostasis, where it's basically you have a blood pressure and your body's doing everything to keep it in that range.
Mhm.
What he talks about is called allostasis. And allostasis is, he goes, your body's trying to predict what's going to happen. So when you spend your life being anxious, your body goes, hey, you're really anxious. So we got to keep that blood pressure up because apparently there's something dangerous
Something's
trying to
about
get
to
to us.
happen.
So I'm
Yeah.
going to do everything I can to keep it up because I know what's coming down the road. So by treating all the little things that make your blood pressure go up, it'll go down, but it doesn't fix the underlying problem, which is your body's gearing up to be ready to fight or flight.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're a dog guy. I had a border collie rescue who is the last border collie I'll ever have. So but his whole problem, people were like, does he bite? No. He didn't chew. He didn't go to the bathroom in the house. But the poor dog spent his day trying to anticipate my next move.
Yeah.
And he lived in that anxiety. I had kitchen cabinets I wasn't allowed to
Really?
touch because the metal mixing bowls were in there and they make a noise. Like, he was just hyper vigilant all the time.
Really
And
interesting.
he's like the perfect example of how unfortunate it can be when we get stuck in that state. And I find you see this a lot, like, people will be like, well, I'm not stressed, and then they
Oh, they don't. Yeah.
list they're
They
so
don't. Yeah.
stressed they've lost, it's like having a pain point that eventually you just don't feel the pain anymore.
No,
So,
well, when I was in school, I lived in a suburb of Washington, D.C. and commuted into D.C. When there was no traffic, it took 15 minutes. When there was traffic, it took an hour. And when there was bad weather or an accident, it took 2 hours, right?
yeah.
And you're like, it just became so a part of you that you didn't even pay attention. But now I live in a rural area that's a couple hours outside of DC. And when I get to DC and I get into traffic, I'm like, I mean, now I can feel it. And I'm like,
Right.
oh, right. And I'm like, oh, I felt that every day. Just didn't even know it, right?
Right, you just weren't even aware of it. And those are some of the things. I love that you brought that up, because people don't. Yeah, you can go down the list of the major life stressors, but it's that you talked about, we're meant to have this stress response, or feel an emotion and then return to baseline. And it's the big things on top of the little things that just drive. Our body doesn't know the difference between traffic's
Does
really
not.
bad and I'm going to be late versus, there's a tiger chasing me down. It's,
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
you
No.
know,
Well, and this is where worry comes from, right? So worry. So what I said is, okay, here's your happy place. And once you identify it, you go, wow, I can get there, right? That's not even that tricky, right? You just have to pay attention. But then you go, well, but there's things that are keeping me from that happy place, and that's where the stresses come in. So when I talk about worry, one of the things that I would say to people is like, okay, well, tell me what worry is. And they'd get that same look like, well, I got this one. And they're like, well, wait. And then they find that it's actually not so easy to define.
mhm,
And what I found as a doctor, like 300 years ago, when we diagnosed somebody with diabetes, we said, oh, your sugar's too high. And so our only advice was, we'll eat less sugar.
right.
So when we started learning, oh, it has to do with insulin and your pancreas and your liver and your stomach hormones and and insulin transport. Well, then we got way better tools. So now our treatment of diabetes is so much better it was just when I started practice,
Sure.
right? And so what I found with all these stress things is I think our definitions have been way too superficial. So our treatments have been very generic. It's like, well, do mindfulness or do yoga or do whatever, right? And it's like, so when you make a better definition, then you can get better tools and you get better results, right? And so I ended up defining worry as, hey, I'm using this amazing skill that I can envision the future, but I'm using this skill to focus on all the bad things that can happen, which then sets off a fear reaction right now. But because the fear reaction is to an idea and not to a thing, there's nothing to make it stop. Because anytime I think the idea, it sets off the reaction. So,
Mm.
like my dog, I use her as an example. Like, if a big dog comes in my yard and she can smell it or hear it, she furs up and she's right. But then, as soon as the big dog goes away, she's laying back down, hanging out, right? I'm sitting there going, what would happen if my grandson was here? What if I was outside? What if they, right? So it's like I can think a whole bunch. And I found the smarter you are, the more things you can think of.
Right.
And this is why social media has caused so much increase in our anxiety. So even though our life is so much better because of all the things that we have available to us, our stresses are gone up because social media on a minute by minute basis is presenting us with every bad thing that anybody could think of. And it's like, so you
Proof.
see a
It's
plane
like
crash in
proof.
India, but
Yeah.
they don't give you the balance of like a million planes landed safely yesterday. And it's like,
Right.
yeah. And so we get, like we go, oh, Iran just got bombed. Oh, Gaza, oh, Ukraine. Like, and it's like LA, like we hear all these things over and over and over and over again, which, as you say, sometimes we don't even pay attention to how stressed it makes us feel
Right.
because it's sort of like that baseline. We don't even realize there is something below the baseline. So,
Yeah. And I love that you use the word skill because I think so many people, when it comes to their own personal psychology, of like just it's almost the same for me as a diagnosis. Like, we identify, we just like slap our labels on, right? Like,
yes,
I'm a worrier, I'm a, and I've done it. I'm a Jewish mama from the East Coast,
yeah.
like,
It's our
but
identity.
but once you realize that changing your thought patterns is a skill, right? And it's a skill we all have. Like,
Yes.
the aware, I am aware of how I used to live, and now even my daughter just said to me 2 days ago something about like, oh my gosh, I don't know how you're staying so calm. And I'm like, well, 10 years ago I might not have. It was a family situation, family
Yes.
drama thing, and I'm like, because I'm constantly learning to be aware of my reactions and to make
And
choices.
yes. I mean, I spent some time going, hey, I was feeling hungry today. What does that mean? Like, what signals were going off that made me say, oh, that was hunger? And what I found is a lot of people with anxiety think they're hungry.
Yeah.
And so they eat something, but they still feel that same sensation. So then they eat some more something, and then they eat some
Mhm.
more something, and all of a sudden now they're overweight. And it's like, no, you were misinterpreting the signals.
Right. I love that. Do you have a tip for listeners on how, because I'm in, right? Like I love the information you're giving people and what you walk people through in the book. And I'm there. I've been working on this stuff for a long time, and I see it help people, even specifically healing their autoimmune journey. But the more joy and less anxious we are and less stressed we feel, the better people we become, right? We're better partners, we're better caregivers, we're better fill in the neighbors, and the world does become a better place.
Yes. Well, so here's what I found is that people want to feel like they're in control. They want to feel like they're accepted, and they want to feel important, and they want to feel like they're appreciated. And all those things and they want to feel safe, which I think is one of I think that's probably the biggest thing out there. So when people go, money's the root of all evil, I'm like, nah, not sure. Because what money does is it buys you those things. It buys you control and safety and right. So it's really, that's what you're looking for. And like, if you go, hey, I got $1 million, and you're like, yeah, do you really feel safe? You're like, no, I just read an article about some guy who had $10 million and lost it all. So no, I don't know if $1 million is not right. So we never have that feeling of safety because there's so many things out there that could take it away. And that's where people get into trouble. And so what I found is that when you understand what they are, then it's a lot easier to find it. And it's a lot easier to get it. And now you can start making tools. And what I've seen is by thinking of these stresses as side effects to your skills, what it says is they're never going to go away as long as I have these skills. But the first thing I have to do is go, isn't that amazing that I have that skill? Yay, right? Like my grandson doesn't have that skill, right? Right. So it's like when you look at it that way, then you're like, oh, okay, well, then if I can get rid of the side effects, I can do that. I say to people, I don't want you to stop worrying. Worrying's a good thing, right? You're looking at you're looking at bad outcomes going, hey, what can I do about it? What I do want is two things. One is to worry efficiently.
I like
Because
that.
what I see is people get up in the middle of the night going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Over and over and over again. I'm like, ooh, no, okay, we got to do this efficiently. And two is they can do it without fear. Like you can go into the future and not have fear. And that really, when you take out the fear from worry, then you're like, well, we call planning. That's planning, right? So planning is looking at the future and figuring out something without fear. That's the key.
I love that. And you're speaking my language. I am a planner. So
And that's a good thing, right? That's how we got to be successful. It's how we got to be where we are.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what I see is when you come from a place where you're feeling safe, where you're feeling secure, where you're feeling in control, and you have reserve. Reserve is a big word that I like to use, right? When you have extra, then people give freely. It's like it doesn't even, like I just got involved in the Rotary Club. And here's an organization that it's around the world. It sits on a $2 billion endowment. Everything they do is for free because they want to give to people. And it's like, that is what most people are like. But when you put them in a stressful situation, then all of a sudden they start pulling back and going, well, I don't know if I have enough for me, so I don't know if I can give to you.
Well, and I love to circle back to, you mentioned social media and the news of the day. You just blurted out all the things that are in the headlines today. We're not, when was the last time you saw news coverage of something wonderful the Rotary did, right? Like it's what we're being fed. Sometimes we have to take a little responsibility to look for the good, to, like you said, like how many planes landed safely, right? Like, but that's not going to make the news. So
well, this is what I want to change the news, right? I want them to say, it's fine that I want to hear about it. Well, okay, let me stop. The humans have been designed to look for bad things in our environment, right? Because we have to stay safe.
Skill. Yeah.
So what I say to people is like, if I had 10 people in this room that were trying to give me $1,000, I'd be like, yeah, that's great, right? But then there's a guy in the corner with a machine gun. Yeah, no, I'm paying attention to that guy, right? Because if he kills me, the other $10,000 doesn't do me any good at all, right? So we're actually set up to look for this, our eyes, our ears are all been set up to say, hey, there's something dangerous going on. Be careful. Sure. So when you apply that to our world, because now our world is not just where I'm at in my house, it's my state, it's my country, it's my earth. It's outer space. It's the future. It's the past, right? Oh, I got to keep all that safe.
Everybody's so stressed out.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So it gets tricky.
Yeah.
So you have to really you have to change that habit of focusing on bad things. So when I do a seminar, I go, okay, tell me all the bad things that can happen. And people go, and they're like writing away. And I go, okay, tell me all the good things that can happen. They're like,
Blank.
no, that's not gonna happen. Right. And you're like, no, it's just as likely a good thing's gonna happen. That's probably more likely a good thing's gonna happen than a bad thing. So
yeah. And like you said, so much of it, and it is an exercise and a skill. Gratitude being on your list of so many times when I work with clients on, I want to do create a gratitude practice.
yes.
And they get offended right away. I am a grateful
Really?
person. And I'm like, no. I wasn't saying you're not a grateful person, but we can enhance that skill, like you said. And then you see it's shifting, right? The old saying of where attention goes, energy flows. And
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
yeah, you want to identify the threat, but don't stay stuck. Also identify the people wanting to gift you and all of the beautiful, wonderful things.
Because one of the things that happens is like if I'm in my office, right, and somebody comes in and they're kind of a pain in the butt, right? They're yelling, they're screaming, something didn't go right. But then there's 20 other patients that I'm seeing that are going, Doc, that was so great. Your staff is wonderful. Like, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. But when you go home, who do you tell a story about?
Right.
You tell a story about the person that was a pain, right? And it's like, stop. Like my wife just did this the other day. She goes, the traffic in our area sucks. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She goes, well, on Friday, we live in a corridor that goes from DC and Baltimore to the shore, right? So people drive through us to get to the beach, right?
Yep.
So on Friday night and Saturday morning and Sunday afternoon, traffic is horrible and you can't get to the grocery store and stuff like that. And I'm like, honey, seriously, like for 5 hours on 3 days out of the week during the summer, the traffic is horrible, but every other time it's just fine. And it's like, she's like, no, that's not true. Okay, right.
And
So
you
we
live
have
in
that
such an
tendency.
amazing place that,
Yes.
it's the same in Colorado with them anywhere or Jersey with the shore yeah, it is. But we do, I don't know if she feels lucky that she has you to point that out, but.
No, she does not, right? No, she does not. But I like this because in New Jersey, they call it the shore.
Yes.
Here in Maryland, you call it the beach.
Right.
Yeah. Same continuous sand, but all
it
right.
is, same
names.
coast, right? Same place. I think only in Jersey is it called the shore. Like,
yes,
because
absolutely.
I lived in
I grew up
Florida,
in
it was the
Philadelphia,
beach.
so yeah, you went to the shore, right? So
Yeah, I think it was just so that we knew what we were talking about, and maybe nobody else did.
maybe,
I don't know.
I don't know.
But it is a choice, and I'm assuming you sometimes catch yourself focusing on the negative, or we talk about this as being a skill. So does that mean that you've got it nailed? You wrote the book, so
Right. No, well,
mic drop.
So here's what I found: like a lot of people that I see are overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and here's the problem: that the people that are overwhelmed, they come in and here's their symptoms: they can't sleep, or they sleep too much, or they eat, or they don't eat enough, or they're anxious all the time, blah, 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 and they get diagnosed with depression.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, he's not depressed; he's just overwhelmed. Because
Right.
giving them medicine might make them feel a little bit better, but so does drinking and having a beer make them feel better, right? I mean, it's not they're beer deficient, right? So it's like we keep diagnosing them with serotonin deficiencies, and
Yeah.
we need to, right? And you're like, no, they're just overwhelmed because as humans, so your dog and my dog, they get one thing in their head, that's it, right? I'm hungry, I'm gonna eat, I gotta go to the bathroom, I'm going outside. You're trying to get into a cabinet, like, no, don't get in that cabinet, don't make noise, right? So it's like, but we can handle 5 and 10 and 15 and 20 things at a time. So what happens and here's the word I use, when you lump, like you put it all together.
Yes.
I don't know why humans do this. Think about this. Like when you're lumping, you go, oh, like my doctor said this and my car did that and right? And my house did this. And then like, oh yeah, and I forgot my tire went flat yesterday and they add something on top. I'm like, why are you adding? Like you already got enough. Stop adding, right? But when you get this lump of stress, you're overwhelmed and you're like, you don't even, you're past your coping skills. You have no idea what to do with it. And you're freaking out. And then being overwhelmed becomes one more problem. And it takes away all your energy to try and even deal with whatever you got going on, right? So what I talk about is shoe boxes. And I got this from a friend of mine. Okay. So think about this. You walk into a bedroom and there's 100 shoe boxes. And the bottom's here, and the lid's here, and the left shoe's there, and the right shoe's there, and there's 200 shoes, and they're strewn across the room. And you walk in, you're like, oh, right? You're freaking out, right? But if you walk into the room and there's 100 shoe boxes, and the box, the lid's on, the shoes are inside, the piece of paper's wrapped around her, and they're all stacked up nicely inside the closet, same amount of shoe boxes.
Yep.
Now it's not overwhelming. You go, man, I got a lot of shoes. But not overwhelming, because now you just take down one shoebox, you look at it, you put it back up. So when people can compartmentalize, so I just did this with a client of mine. She's getting divorced, starting a new business, getting older, trying to figure out what she's going to do with her life, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, and she's like, she's got a house, this house, and they got another house there. And it's like, you can see she's getting overwhelmed, and it's paralyzing her. So when we talked about shoe boxes and compartmentalization, you could hear her just calm down, going, oh, okay, yeah, that problem's not overwhelming by itself. It's only when I let it bleed into the other ones that it starts causing problems. So the more separate you can keep the problems, the more fixable they are and the less overwhelming they are. And then you don't have to take a medication to cure depression, right?
I love that. When I was younger, I used to think of people with the ability to compartmentalize as like a negative. It's just my own personal, right? It's always perception, and it is it's a gift. It can become a gift. It can be a gift if it's used to, like you said. I like that idea of like not letting one thing bleed into the other, bleed into the, then you're walking around with 1,000 pounds on your shoulder.
Yes.
And I also want to highlight, and listeners know I talk about it often, especially for those that have been in a chronic illness or autoimmune path, even most especially pre-diagnosis, right? When it's like something's wrong, but they don't know what's wrong.
Oh, yeah, that's the worst.
The first thing, especially women, are offered, when they're complaining of fatigue and their labs look fine, is that antidepressant. And it's like, stop. Like, we're not, there's a time and a place. Also, those, don't even get me started. Those were meant to be short-term, like acute care medications that are now just, it's the Band-Aid. It's almost like, be quiet. No. I don't want to.
It's a huge amount of our population on an antidepressant, right?
Yeah.
Like a crazy amount, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, one of the things that I've seen,
I'm not saying it's all bad. Like I don't. I mean,
what I've seen with physicians is they are trained a certain way, right?
Sure.
And two is that they're busy and their time constraints are more than they've ever been, and so they're looking for something that's fast. Yeah. So when they do a bunch of tests and they don't see the answer, their first go-to is, well, then it must be you.
Right.
And then they go, oh, if it's you, then you have anxiety, you have depression. Oh, and we have a medicine for that. Here it is, right? And you're like, go see a psychiatrist or go see a psychologist or whatever. And it's like, one of the things that I learned was when you say this, when I refer somebody to a psychologist, 75% of the time they don't go. So I can say, so I got to sit there in my office and go, I'm going to send you a psychologist. I did my job. I sent you a psychologist, knowing that 75% aren't going to go, or I can learn to do it myself, which is what I ended up doing. And here's what I found. Patients didn't mind coming to the doctor. They go, if somebody said, hey, where are you going? I'm like, oh, I'm going to go see my primary care. And then we talked about depression and being overwhelmed and anxiety and Right. It was fine because I'm there at their primary care doctor. If they go, hey, where are you going? I'm going to see my psychologist. Like, oh, what's the matter with you? Right. So it's like, there's this sort of stigma that goes along with psychological care that doesn't go with primary care. But primary care doctors don't have the time that it takes to sit down with a patient and go through some of these issues because they take time.
Which is why you can get a copy of Highway to Your Happy Place, the roadmap to less stress. so amazing. For people that are listening on the go, where's the best place to find you and or find the book?
Right. So the book is on Amazon, and literally in the next 2 weeks, the audiobook should be coming out. And I have an online course that's going to be coming out, and you can find that at thelessstressdoc.com. Okay. And it'll be on there. It should be coming out in a couple of weeks. These have been
Love it.
like a year in the making, right?
Always.
But
No,
here's what I
you're
found,
almost
like
there.
when you write in as an author, like as a doctor, I would be in the room with somebody and I could see in their face whether they're getting what I'm saying or not. But when you're writing a book, you have to be way more generic, and that makes it difficult. So what I say to people is, email me if you want. I'm at lessstressdoc@gmail.com, because what I see is, like, the book will talk about worry in general, but people have specific things that they worry about. And so if you need something more specific, just email me.
I love that. So we're at the point where listeners are leaning in because they know I am going to ask you for one thing listeners can do starting today to improve their health, their stress level, their life experience.
Okay. Well, besides buying my book, uh, here's what I say to people all the time. Do not resign yourself to being stressed out. There are so many things out there, so many resources. Julie, me, all these people are out here trying to help you out. Do not sit in your cave, in a dark cave, thinking I can't get out. Do not resign yourself to that. There's ways out. You can get better. You can have a happy life. Spend all your life in your happy place.
Amazing. Gary, thank you so much for the work that you're doing, and not to discount all of your years of practicing primary care, because that was very important as well. But we're really, really grateful that you have decided to take this message broader and reach more people with it, because I can tell you, people need it.
That's very nice.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah.
For
And what you're
everyone,
doing is awesome too. From just listening to what you're doing, it sounds great, right? We need more of you.
Thank you. Well, I say read the book, listen to the podcast, and make some changes, right?
Yep, absolutely.
For everyone listening, remember you can get the links, show notes, and transcripts by visiting inspiredliving.show. You'll find a link in there for the book as well. Hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. I'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to Julie Michelson's Inspired Living with Autoimmunity. Did you enjoy this episode? Please like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to get a transcript of this and every other episode, just head on over to inspiredliving.show or click on the link in this episode's description. There, you can also find everything we discussed in this episode, including links and information about our guest. You can even send in your questions to be answered by Julie in a future episode. That's inspiredliving.show. Until next time, this is Julie Michelson's Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast, helping you take your power back.